good morning, everybody.
Good morning. How are you?
Everybody, thank you for coming to another episode of the DD214 Gaming Podcast. Today we are joined by a true guardian angel in the veteran community. We are joined by Frank Doc Schupp.
What's going on, guys?
Thanks for being here, Doc. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. Hanging in here. How about yourself?
Doing okay so far. John is probably going to have a laugh. I ended up coming out to Kansas City again, so I'm coming to everybody direct from Kansas City, Missouri again. So, because I can't stay away from here lately. So yeah.
There's something about the energy in that place that really sucks you in.
I'm telling you, man. I can't wait till I actually move here for good. So it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time. So yeah.
Absolutely. And before we start, Frank, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell them who you are, man, go right ahead.
Too easy. My name's Frank Schupp. Everybody calls me Doc. I'm a former Army medic. When I was active duty, I was 3rd ID. Worked at the Wall Street Army Medical Center. Did some time with the Guard. One deployment overseas to Iraq. Came back home. Since then, I've been working at a hospital. I run therapy groups there. And I work with a nonprofit called the New Jersey Veterans Network, where we go do stuff out in the community. And I have a entertainment group called Nightlife Entertainment, where we also go out and do stuff in the community. So I keep pretty busy.
Awesome. Where did you, when you went to Iraq, whereabouts in Iraq did you end up landing on your deployment?
In Baghdad. We worked out at Cropper mostly.
Okay. How long were you there?
A year.
You were there. Okay, so that was when deployments were still a year plus, basically.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, my first deployment was a year, but it was one of the last. I don't want to say our unit was the last unit because we weren't, but it was in that that little time frame where year-long deployments were coming to an end, basically. So we were among the last ones that did a year-long deployment. After that, it was all 9 months, basically. So.
Oh wow, that must have been nice. I would have loved to have done 9 months. Jesus Christ.
You'd be surprised. 9 months goes quick enough, I guess, but it also goes every bit as slow as the year long and the 15.
I can imagine. I'm not taking away from that. Most definitely. I just yeah. Three less months would have been really nice.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean, you're going back 100%. Within this time frame, and that helps out tremendously. I can't imagine the early days of Iraq and even Afghanistan to an extent where it's you're going to be gone for 15 months. You know what I mean? And there's no guarantee you guys are coming off the patch chart. You guys might just be there longer. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it was back then. They didn't really have a tried and true system for replacing units. So yeah. So yeah, it took them quite a while to get that whole deployment thing streamlined, and then yeah.
That's very interesting, because I believe while I was in that whole chain, that whole deployment time lapse changed as well. Did you guys have a good week this week? What were you guys up to?
Go ahead, Doc.
Well, this week was actually pretty busy, man. Between everything going on in Afghanistan. And between the hurricane that we got hit with, it's been pretty busy. There's been a lot of vets having a hard time, getting triggered, understandably, and getting a lot of calls. So this was a pretty busy week for me.
Is that kind of a normal week for you? Are do you kind of help run a hotline, or when they call in, is it you they talk to kind of thing? Or
what we have is some of the best outreach in the state. So,
okay.
Traditionally, we have a lot of veterans who will reach out to us and call us if things are going on. And then what we do is we refer them to different organizations in our network that we work with. So let's say we have a veteran who's in need of counseling. What I'll do is I'll talk to my people over at the vet center, refer them over there, make sure they're taken care of. Let's say we have a guy who has the lights about to shut off. We'll refer them to an organization who takes care of that, like Apocalypse. So it's we just kind of team up with different people. So when stuff is going on and people are freaking out, we're one of the first people. Yeah.
They basically got somebody to call that can get them in touch with the people they need to get in touch to, basically.
Yep. And we do some peer mentoring as well. So.
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned that because I just had my first, I guess, official experience with the VA, and I can't really drop my paperwork yet because of the timeline of when my ETS actually is. But by calling them and talking to them, I realized like how kind of finagled the system is. You know what I mean? Because the gentleman I talked to was very, very helpful. Don't get me wrong. Like the gentleman I talked to was very, very helpful. But it was like, well, you kind of missed the timeline for this, so you got to wait till you're officially ETS. I'm like, okay, that's not a big deal. He's like, but then when you do call, you need to call or bring us in person like this giant packet of paper, like of all this stuff from your service. And I'm like, okay, that's not too hard either, no big deal. But then he's like, and then from there, like we kind of really don't know after that. Like that's what we help you out, we help you set your stuff up, and then you just turn it into the VA and you wait to see if you get a rating. And I'm like, oh, but it doesn't sound right. Like shouldn't that system be a little bit more streamlined, like as soon as you get out, like all this stuff, and yeah, it was an interesting conversation basically where it's like I can see the 14 layers of red tape I'm gonna have to jump through just to make a claim.
I mean, the thing is, you gotta also understand from their side of the road, side of the tracks. It's like, man, there's things that they have to cross their T's and dot their I's with as well.
Absolutely, 100%.
And like even me working at the hospital, I do. Sometimes some of my patients don't understand why we have some of the rules that we do, and literally, it's like one of the things they have to go over every week as patients come in to say, look, man, these things might not seem like they make sense, but these rules are here for so and so reason. So I know it can be frustrating. I'm sorry that's happening, man.
Oh, I mean, trust me, it's not. I wouldn't even call that a frustration. It's more like that's like when you're exiting active duty and you're kind of transitioning back into the civilian type lifestyle, and the VA is basically like the civilian liaison for the military. So it's like going from one giant bureaucracy into another. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I don't blame the VA for having their rules any more than, we get upset at the Army sometimes for all the rules that we have, right? Like I don't blame the VA for that any more than I would blame the Army for having all their rules. It's more just it's gonna be my turn to deal with it here in about a month. So John, what did you do this week? John, are you there?
John, we lost.
Oh, sorry about that. I always do that.
Did you mute your microphone?
Yeah. It was just like any other week. Working over at the Big Red. Like any other day. And yesterday we had some family over, and it was a big update in the house. We got a T-ball set.
All right.
Cool, and my son was hitting dingers out over the field out there. So we got a big open field because we don't have neighbors over in the left side of us. So he was throwing them out there like he was Derek Jeter 2.0. So
did you guys got hit with a hurricane too, right?
Yes, we did.
So here's the curious part to me, and this is just me being me, I guess probably, but. Hurricanes didn't used to be able to make it from the Gulf Coast over land all the way up to the eastern seaboard, but now they are. And it's like you can call it a tropical depression by the time it gets to like Jersey and like New York and like Maine or whatever. But the reality is the storm system itself did not die off between the Gulf Coast and the eastern seaboard, which is like that's scary. Like that storm literally just went from the Gulf Coast all the way up the eastern seaboard, all the way to the eastern seaboard, without stopping. And it dumped record amounts of rain on you guys, and that's like, this might be kind of a new normal now. This might actually be a new normal, and that's like it's a little. That's for me as somebody who's never dealt with a hurricane, especially like I cannot imagine 8 or 9 inches of water within 3 hours. That's like an unheard of. It's an unheard of concept to me. And if that's the new normal for the East Coast, the East Coast gets like the second wave of
absolutely
whatever hurricanes make it, into the Gulf Coast. Hurricane season might be even worse for you guys because you already get hurricanes, that travel up the coast, let alone like inland from the Gulf Coast and still make it all the way up to you guys, right? Like,
Yeah, and you know, for some, because the one thing about like our area, New Jersey is very hilly. So you know, depending on what hill you are in New Jersey, you're not going to
Right.
catch any floods at all in your house. You probably may not even you may catch a leak in your house. You may have, you know, some trees down, some power lines
Sure.
down. But for probably maybe literally 50% in New Jersey, it's all hills, and a lot of people live in those hills. So,
Right.
you know, for example, where in your area where you live, Frank, you live kind of on a hill.
Yeah.
You know, you live on the upper hilled area in New Jersey as well as me, and especially like my area, we have a giant concrete grout system, water system in the back that the water just falls
Just
back
drains
there.
right.
Yeah, it just goes
Right.
right in there. So we were very fortunate. It had a little leak up on
Now,
the
are the
roof.
are the people in lower lying areas though? Are they the ones that are screwed in like the Jersey, New York City area? Like, is
Yes. For
that are
example,
these?
my mother, she lives right. She lives in Hoboken, and Hoboken is
Okay.
it's right on the Hudson River.
Right.
She fortunately did not lose anything, but she was explaining to me that there was cars all over the place, and Hoboken always floods. It always floods, and this was probably, you know, if you want to talk about a new normal, Hoboken's going to turn into Venice, and probably within the next couple years.
Right, right. Well, and it always, I don't want to say fascinates me. Fascinates is probably the wrong word for it, but this is not necessarily something that has never happened in history before.
Yeah.
When you know, when rivers flood, or if the tide comes in too much or whatever, and places that people have built their cities and their towns, sometimes they become in the way. You know what I mean? Like, and there's really nothing you can do about that. But it does make me wonder, though, especially with how condensed the eastern seaboard is with the population. I mean, you guys basically, you live in a megalopolis. You know what I mean? Like, you go from Boston, Massachusetts, way up north, and you travel down. You know, the city doesn't stop until,
Bless you.
you know, outside of Washington D.C. I mean, it's nothing but city from Boston all the way down to D.C. It's just basically
Yeah.
one giant city that started off as a lot of different cities. You know what I mean? And it makes me wonder, for a lot of the people that live and work and commute in those areas, like, you know, is the infrastructure going to hold? Like, are we going to need to start building some new roads in the next 10 years to offset flooding? You know, if they're too close to the ocean, I don't know. But you guys live there. I don't, so I don't
Yeah.
really know. You know, when it floods out here in the Midwest, you got to be kind of close to the river, or you have to be in a low-lying area where if a levee is breached, they know that low-lying area will be flooded. But if you're
Yeah.
away from a river, or if you're up on a hill, you really don't have to worry about it because the water just runs off. You know what I mean? It can rain all day and all night, and it might be, you know, your ground might be saturated, but you're not going to be flooded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Whereas where you guys are, everything is kind of packed in concrete. It's been there for 100 years already. You know, if not way more than that. And your infrastructure isn't necessarily, from my understanding, wasn't really built to withstand multiple massive storms like that, possibly a year. So I don't know, like that it worries me for you guys more than anything.
It's gonna
that you
get
have to deal with it.
it's gonna get interesting within the next 100, 200 years.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So how was your week, Jay?
The week was okay. I obviously, like I was the joke earlier, I came out to Kansas City again. What started off was me dropping my kids off to spend the weekend with their mom in Denver, and I was going to fly out of Denver to fly here on Thursday. There was a fairly major snafu that happened with the plane ticket, and I'll joke about it on here, but I ended up having to drive basically. So I ended up meeting. Nikki came out. My girlfriend met me in a place called Hays, Kansas. So like I drove 2 hours to Denver, dropped my kids off, and then I drove about 5 hours after that. Sorry, but that was Cody. That was the dog. And then I ended up driving about 5 hours to Hays, Kansas. My girlfriend met me in Hays, and we spent the night together there. And then we ended up just hanging out there. And then the next day, we got up and we were kind of lethargic, and we got on the road, and we didn't make it like 60 miles. There's another town in Kansas called Salina on I-70, and we just stopped in Salina for lunch, and we ended up getting a hotel in Salina and just hanging out in Salina on Friday night. So we just kind of did like a little tour, of like the middle of nowhere, Kansas, basically. And Salina has a college. It's a little bit of a bigger town than Hayes is. But we had fun, and then last night or yesterday we drove into Kansas City, and we did. We're just doing our thing, hanging out, being crazy kids in love, I guess, over the weekend. And then
there you go.
Tomorrow is going to be the hard day, because Denver is about as far away from Kansas City as like my house is in Pueblo, but I have to go to Denver first to get my kids, obviously, because they got to go to school on Tuesday. So tomorrow morning, I'm gonna have to. But I have to go to Denver first to get my kids, obviously, because they got to. I'm gonna have to drive up early, drive to Denver, get my kids, and then drive 2 hours down to Pueblo. But tomorrow is going to be a very long day for me. So, but I'll live. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Absolutely.
part of the deal. So, not a big deal. I apologize. Let me let this dog out. Cody.
Frank knows all that too, man.
Oh yeah.
How is Shadow? Is he there with you today?
Yeah, he's napping.
Roaming around.
The camera real quick.
There he
See
is.
him down there?
Oh man.
He's taking a good little nap there.
Oh, look at that doggo. Look at the doggo.
Yeah,
Like that.
Shadow's a big celebrity here in New Jersey, man.
Tell me about him, Frank. Tell me about him. Tell me about your dog, Doc.
Yeah, sure thing. So where do I start? Okay, so well, Shadow's a therapy dog. So that means whenever we're doing events, we're at the hospitals, the shelters, I'll bring them along, play around with everybody, like a good team. Because I often do public speaking. While I'm doing that, I literally go from person to person, just kind of relax and make them feel more comfortable, play with them a little bit. So it works out really well. He's my best buddy. So he's being lazy now. He's taking a nap. It's still early for us, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, before we get to the meat and potatoes, we have two awesome news stories from the past week. The first news story is our gaming story, and it deals with China is limiting 3 hours of online gaming a week for younger gamers to battle gaming addiction. There was a lot of people obviously with a lot of backlash about it because unfortunately how everybody has their own feelings about the country, especially now with some of the stuff that's been going on. But there's been a lot of this is stupid, and then there's been a lot of, well, if you're combating gaming addiction, this could be a good thing, and how many other countries will follow suit to battle this? Because not only are they battling gaming addiction, but they're trying to solve the issue with children spending on battle passes, on DLCs, to limit the spending on that, to pretty much stop these companies from taking advantage of younger audiences who have access to all this money.
Right. Well, and I think that the debate has raged for literal decades over video games and whether or not the time you spend in front of that screen doing your thing, it should ever even count as like a hobby, let alone if it's healthy or not. And my take has always been, even growing up as a kid playing video games, video games were a little bit different when we were kids, because they weren't quite as intricate or, as long lasting, like we play games nowadays, it might take you 100 hours before you beat the game. You know what I mean? Depending on what you do. It's different from the way it was when we were kids. What I will say is, I don't necessarily feel like anybody needs, their country's government to tell them how long they should be doing X, Y, or Z. That's, in my opinion, that's for the parents, and that's something that parental responsibility kind of comes in and plays a big role in. I'm not surprised that China did that. That's completely par for the course for the Chinese government to do stuff like that. But here's what I will say, and then this is in no way saying that China is any kind of right or whatever about the whole situation. What I will say is it's probably not a bad thing to at least generate some discussion about it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old spending 6 or 8 hours in front of a TV every day. That's probably not healthy. Like the game might kick ass. It might be a kick-ass game. But at some point, kids need to go out. They need sunshine. They need exercise. They need to get all that little kid energy out of their system. You know what I mean? Like they're kids. Once you get to probably like pubescence, like 10, 11, 12, you start becoming a teenager. Okay, make your own choices on what you do, but there's definitely something to be said about not sitting stagnant in your house, in your room,
Absolutely.
on a couch, whatever, for 8 to 12 hours a day, especially as a child. So I don't necessarily agree with a 3-hour limit, but at the same time, like, there is something to be said for, healthy alternatives. When you've played a couple of hours, take a break, rest your eyes, get some sunshine, get some vitamin D, going on your skin, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. And then maybe, after taking like a tactical pause, you can go back in there and, beat your level or beat the game or whatever. That's just strictly my opinion. I would never really fall in line with a government telling me like you can only watch your TV for like a couple of hours a day. Like that's just not my bag at all. So
I do have to say that was actually very like beautifully said. That was like that was like perfectly said. Like that's probably exactly how I would feel about it as well.
I'm a huge proponent of personal freedom. So like obviously Chinese is still technically still a communist government, even though it's not really technically communism, but whatever. China is still technically a communist government. They're functionally a dictatorship, and they're just gonna tell 1 billion people in their country you can only play video games 3 hours a day. Like, okay, fucking good luck, bro. You know what I mean? Like
3 hours a week.
3 hours a week? Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
That's like, what are you going to get done on a video game in 3 hours? I mean,
that's the whole tutorial.
I can play Red Dead Redemption for 3 hours and not even do a mission. You know what I mean? Like, literally. Like, I can just go explore.
Absolutely.
And play poker in one of the little towns. You know what I mean? And then just ride my horse into the sunset. And 3 hours just went by and I didn't even do anything in the game. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. That's beyond ridiculous.
Frank, Frank, any thoughts on that?
There's 2 points of view. Like John, I think John said it very well. From a moral side, yeah, man, I don't think anybody should be told how long they should be able to do something, especially recreational. I see what the concern would be with people spending too much time playing video games, and I can understand that. And I totally hear what he's saying about the fact that games aren't the same that they used to be. But like for example, Johnny, you know that I'll do like recreational stuff,
absolutely,
for events and for people where we'll bring video games, and we traditionally use. As a matter of fact, we discussed it that day, John.
Yeah.
So we'll use like older video games because the time span is a lot shorter. You can play a lot quicker, and you don't have to be as into it for as long. So I mean, maybe some of these older government guys are thinking of those older games, where you could like, hey, jump in and play for a couple of hours and be done. But I don't think that has a lot to do with gaming now. But yeah, I don't think anybody needs to be told what to do with their spare time. If you can do something responsibly and be okay, I don't think there needs to be laws around that. So.
Very well said. Good morning, Francesca. Good morning, Stephen Lynch from the UK. I just want to. So someone just said more Doc Schupp. They're saying more Doc Schupp. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't understand the language that's printed there, so I can't say the name. But we see you, and more Doc Schupp. More Doc Schupp.
Let's ask Doc about what was our next thing was for.
Yeah. So and this I would love to hear what you think about this, Frank, because you work with veterans every single day of your life. It's part of your life. The Pineapple Express squad, they went to Afghanistan to save an I believe, if I read this correctly, 630 people.
Love it.
You know,
Love it. I love it.
I don't know the full. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of OPSEC with this, so I don't have a lot of information. I believe there was 9 individuals, all veterans, who got together and said, "Hey, we had enough of this. Let's go do the job." You know, it was a successful mission. No one got hurt. No one died. No one went missing. Head counts were great. I mean, there's really nothing more to say about it, but holy cow! And go Pineapple Express. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Frank, if you'd like to start.
Oh, sure. Man, this is so cool. From a little bit I understand, like, these were guys who were in Afghanistan, and they knew that their interpreters, like guys who were actually on the team, weren't able to get out. So from what I understand, they went in, they escorted them out, and they found ways to get these Turks to a safe place because no man left behind. They were like, hey, these guys are part of the team. We didn't forget about you. We're coming back. So that's from the little bit that I do understand. And man, risking your neck that way, going into a dangerous place on your own accord, whether you have this super cool amount of training or not, is something I highly respect. I'm glad it didn't turn into like an international problem kind of thing, because I was concerned that it would become a political issue and politicians would get involved and boom, boom, boom. That didn't happen. Everybody was on board for this, and I thought that was cool. So, yeah, God bless them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think those are those I guess entities that a lot of those gentlemen probably formerly belonged to is probably the reason we didn't hear a lot of I guess negative backtalk about it, was because this wasn't like people who had just hung out in the military for a year or two before they got out trying to go back into Afghanistan and do a bunch of craziness. We saw during the Syrian civil war, we saw a lot of basically like what amounts to mercenaries, that were former American military going in, making their way into Syria to fight alongside the Free Syrian Army. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to tell a person that they're right or wrong for doing that stuff, but yes, you're holding down a enormous amount of risk by putting yourself in those situations, and to have a group of people go into Afghanistan, which, as far as the logistics and their supply lines and how they even made it into Afghanistan in the first place, no clue. I have absolutely no clue how they did it right now. They probably still have connections. They're probably not too far removed from their active duty service, so they were probably able to sneak into the country somehow and grab as many people as they could and sneak right back out. How they did that, I have no idea. I'm sure we'll probably see a documentary or a freaking book on it someday, but
they're definitely going to make a movie out of this. They're definitely going to make a movie.
I'll tell you what, John, if you say if the numbers you said are correct, 600 and some odd people, that's 600 people that don't have to live there for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And even getting one person out is a lot. And I've seen videos on I saw a video. There's a video on YouTube of an old man in a theater, and they're basically doing some kind of a presentation, but he's in the front row, and they are acknowledging his efforts during World War II to save people from the Holocaust. And then at the end of the video, everybody in the theater stands up. They say, if you were saved by this gentleman, like in World War II, please stand up. And it's the whole auditorium.
Yeah.
So this dude like turns around. He's looking at the whole audience standing up that basically he saved during World War II. Like, and there's no price you can put on that. Even one life kind of becomes precious, in that regard. So when you have several hundred, the exponential kind of like torrent flow of the waters of life, you know what I mean, like down the road generationally, if there's a kid that got saved by these guys, that kid's going to grow up, that kid is going to have kids, those kids are going to have kids, and it all started with a group of ex-operators, taking them out of a bad situation in a country that's falling apart. So good on them for sure.
It's such a powerful story. Veterans, you hear all the talks of all our hometown veterans. They're just like, oh, I'm ready to put my uniform on. I'm ready to go out there and fight. And these guys went out there and did that. Now, on a funny perspective, I want to hear the conversation that went down that led to this decision. Like there must have been some, a couple beers in, and you're just like, oh, I had enough of this. And they we're going to Afghanistan, and hats off to them. Those are true heroes, and and like you said, the most intriguing part of it all is how they got it done. Equipment, vehicles.
Well, there's a lot of stuff people do not think about when they think about people going overseas or performing any type of operation.
They just don't do it.
We don't even necessarily have to talk about a military operation, just an operation in general. There has to be logistics. There has to be some type of a supply line. What are you going to eat? Like you said, vehicles, and then if you throw the military thing on top of it, how are you going to get a weapon into Afghanistan? It's not like you're going to go to Afghanistan and there's going to be weapons waiting for you. Like, how are you getting weapons over there? How are you going to defend yourself? How are you going to defend the people you're getting out? How are you flying out? Are you going overland? Are you taking them in vehicles and going into another country before you fly out? I didn't read too much on it other than kind of like you said, John, kind of like a gist of like who they were and that they got a bunch of people out. Out like how they actually did it and the logistics behind it. I don't even want to touch right now because like it's already it turns my head into like a ball of yarn basically where it's like, okay, good luck, you know what I mean? But they made it happen, so good on them.
And it was a 100% success rate too.
Right. Like you said, there was.
No, you're good.
Go ahead. Can I just add something to what Sanchez was saying? I spoke to a lot of like Afghanistan veterans, and there was a lot of communication going on between the Afghan vets and the interpreters that they worked with. And I'm talking about at least like a good half a dozen Afghan vets that I know were talking to me, even showing me messages of groups of veterans with these Afghan interpreters going back and forth, talking about the level of danger that the Terps were in, talking about what they could do to try to help out. And look, like they really care. I mean, it's like when you talk to like an old veteran buddy that was at another duty station or something. It was that same amount of camaraderie. So as far as like what built up to that mission, I bet it's conversations and feelings like those with like these vets, man. Like it was breaking my heart just reading the messages that they were showing me going back and forth and telling me how much it hurt knowing that their friends were in this danger, imminent danger, and some of them still are.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Absolutely, it's pretty deep.
And what's unfortunate is that the danger will never end. The danger will always be there. It may timid down, it may get a little intense, but it'll never go away. And that's why we have heroes like you to help them to be able to talk about it. Because some of them some don't have anyone to talk to at all, and
it can be rough.
And that's why we're getting to this now. You do so, Frank. You do so much work for the community. I mean, I met you in a comic book Facebook group while I was still living in Georgia, and the first thing you said to me was that if I came up here, you were just like, you're a vet, I got you, I'll get you work. And the first week that I was back in New Jersey, coming from the Army. What did Mr. Schupp do? He got me work. He gave me security work. You have helped me with work. You've set up some of the most amazing volunteer events that I've ever seen. We just did one a couple weeks ago, which had such a beautiful turnout. What was the beginning of it all? What made you want to start giving back to the community? And you know, because you go hard in the paint, man. So what drove you? What was it that made you say, I got to do this?
I'm at a loss for words. That doesn't happen often.
How long, Doc? How long? Okay, let's start. When did you get out of the Army? How about that? Let's start there. When did you get out of the Army?
That was 2013.
Okay. And how long had you been in at that point? Up to that point, how long had you been in?
14 years.
Okay. So it sounds like you had a fairly similar career to mine then, probably. So you were in.
Well, no. Half of that was National Guard.
Well, I mean, kind of same. I mean, 14 years is 14 years. I mean, it doesn't really, if you know, whether you're active duty or you're doing the weekend and 2 weeks a year thing, like it doesn't.
Okay, fair enough.
I've never. I know it used to be, you know, even when I was going through basic training, you know, we would joke with the National Guard guys or the reserve people, you know, and we'd joke with them and we'd make fun, you know, whatever. But that's kind of like, you know, the inter-service rivalry type stuff, you know. But the reality is, GWOT, you know, the Global War on Terror really changed the scope of how we fight wars. And the truth of the matter is there were a lot of National Guard elements that deployed. As National.
Look, not to say that National Guard is bad. I just meant it as if I wasn't full time. There were plenty of very squared away National Guardsmen. We're constantly working with National Guardsmen now, and I see them pushing forward. I see a lot of these guys trying to get work in the community and help us out. There's plenty of times where we have at least a half a dozen National Guardsmen show up just to help out with these events for veterans, and I do see National Guard leadership really trying to do stuff with their veterans. They'll reach out to us, they'll work with us on stuff, some of the resources that we have. So yeah, man, most definitely. As a matter of fact, if it weren't for this hurricane, would have done an event for a National Guard unit that was on AT last week. So most definitely, if it came off like I was putting down the Guard, I love the National Guard.
Oh no, not at all.
You know,
not at all.
If you're a National Guardsman and you're listening to this, please don't send me a mean email. Send me a letter to my house, or I have a pit bull. He's very dangerous. Shut up. See, he's very dangerous. So,
and he's got hops. He jumps high.
He does jump high. He does high fives.
Frank, what was kind of like was there a catalyst that kind of like once you got out, you were kind of like, I still want to be involved, or I still want to help out with other veterans, or whatever? Like, was there a catalyst for you that kind of kicked it all off after you got out, or like what?
After I got out, I actually went through a very difficult time. It was shortly after a deployment, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how I was going to do things. I went through quite a few episodes of depression. A lot of ups and downs. Lost my job a few times. I didn't know where I was going to stay, and there were some really difficult years there. It was right after I got out. So what I started to do was I built a business, and when I built a business, what I wanted to do was work in the nightclub industry, and one of the key things that we did was security. And we were able to gain quite a few nightclubs that we would work with, then different events, and then I wound up working my way up to doing different things like being an MC and controlling shows, hosting shows, music shows, live showcases, stuff like that. And again, our team was mostly veterans. And as things moved along, I went back to college, got my bachelor's degree, and while I was there, I started doing work with their Veteran Service Office. So I was actually working in the Veteran Service Office, actively working with veterans. And I started trying to key in on different stuff where I noticed that there were all these great programs, but nobody knew what they were. You know, like for example, there's everything from free guitars to utility assistance, rental assistance, assistance with feeding your animals, free dogs. There's actually a group that gives away free dogs. Service animals, transportation assistance, job assistance, all these things that could help veterans out that they didn't know about. So I started to really try to showcase and promote these different resources that veterans didn't know about. So I guess that would be what started things off, was the fact that we were veterans who worked in the nightclub industry, and we knew how to promote things. So these organizations that are good at what they do, like, you might be the best friggin' horse therapy ranch in the whole world. That doesn't mean you're good at promoting your horse ranch. So what I wanted to do was start to promote these things. What sent me into, I guess, overdrive is, Will Sanchez mentioned a security team. It was mostly veterans, and we lost one of our team to suicide.
Okay.
And that's why it's difficult to talk about, because I loved him like a brother. Sanchez to tell you, I love all the guys on my team like family. I treat them like family. We lost one of our guys, and when I spoke to family members, they said it was because he needed assistance and resources, and he couldn't get them, and he was hitting that wall for a long time. And the fact that someone that close, and I don't know if that's even true, but the fact that someone that close may have lost him because he was unable to find resources, that really got to me. So we started trying to push it out more. We started doing more events. Eventually, I worked my way up to working with someone named Michael Bull, who is actually the president of the New Jersey Veterans Network.
He's actually watching right now. He just came into the chat. I just saw his name pop up the moment you said his name.
But I dislike him. Probably the worst person in the entire world. If you're watching this, Michael, I'm talking about you. I dislike you. But as I was saying, Michael is a Marine. He's a tough guy. He could take me talking some trash. He knows I love him like a brother. But as I was doing that stuff with Kane, Michael invited me to start working with the New Jersey Veterans Network, and we clicked very well. So there were a lot of things that he knows about, like, say, things that are political, and doing events on these large state scales, and networking that I wasn't as good at, that he would teach me about. And then there was stuff as far as promoting and being more grassroots that I was more used to. So we clicked very well, and our events just continue to get bigger and bigger. And now we have a network where not only do we have dozens and dozens of organizations and resources that we can bring to people, but we have dozens of outlets and outreach initiatives that we can do where we reach people. So we can go on and, we probably work with a few different hospitals, a few different shelters, maybe about a dozen altogether. Hospitals, shelters, senior homes we did a few times. And we have a large list that comes from different charities of veterans and referrals. So when stuff is going on, we can actually reach dozens, sometimes hundreds of veterans if we're doing an event or something that benefits veterans. And we have a lot of backing. We're backed by everybody. We're backed by the National Guard, the PBA, the VA, VFW, the Legion, all the major organizations back us, and we work with them. So we're grassroots, but at the same time, we have the resources from the larger organizations. So.
Okay, awesome.
That's fantastic. Good. Now,
and then how? Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
So one thing that I always found really interesting about what the organizations were doing, we had veteran events, haircuts, and barbecues and stuff, but you went the more non-traditional route and started doing comic conventions, wrestling shows. What was the approach for that, and why did you feel that was a better outlet to have a fun time for veterans?
2 reasons. So number one, whenever you're going to do an event, the first thing you think about, whether it's nonprofit or not, is your market. And in our case, I saw that we were reaching a lot of like the older veterans, but the GWAT veterans, we weren't having as easy a time reaching. So I was like, why don't we try some younger events, some events that are going to reach some of these younger guys, and it worked. So that was That
What were
was
some
really
of the what were some of the techniques you used to, like, okay, we're getting Gulf War vets, we're getting like Vietnam vets. How do you reach out to the GWAT vet? Because you have a 20-year span basically of, you could have GWAT vets that are in their 50s, and you could have GWAT vets that are in their freaking early 20s still. So how do you bridge that gap from a 20-year war? Like, what were some of the things that you changed, I guess, to bring in the GWAT vet?
I don't bridge the gap. What we use are different resources, like the VFWs and the Legions. Those guys are traditionally better with the older veterans because they're already on board. I mean, if you go to a lot of these VFW events, not that there's not younger vets there as well, but a lot of the older vets are really into that. So you can go there, you can work with the VA, and most definitely you'll meet some of the older vets. Social media is good for some of the younger vets, but we'll do like more nightclub type flyers, or we'll do video flyers and stuff like that. And we'll try to get their attention in different ways, like like a podcast. Like you can reach a younger audience, and boom, And also, what's very important, and I was making a big deal of this the last event, Sanchez, was you have to be relatable. When you go to these events at the hospitals, when you go to these events at the shelters, if you walk in there and you're, talking like your General Patton, and you're like, things are going to get better, eye of the tiger, everything is cool. That's great. It's great to try to motivate our veterans. But when you have that one-to-one conversation with a vet, when you sit there, you play cards with them, when you play a video game with them, when you sit there and walk your dog with them, that's when you get that camaraderie where they open up to you and they know that you really care and you're not just there to grandstand. So they're like, hey, this guy cares, this group cares. So when they need something, they remember you and they reach out to you. When they know of another veteran who needs help, they remember you and they refer you. So that's, I think, very key.
Absolutely. I've noticed that. I'm a member of the VFW, and I noticed that at our particular post. You know what I mean? Like we have a smattering of GWAT veterans that have joined the VFW, but on the whole, it appears, at least up to this point in time, that the GWAT generation of combat veteran hasn't really shifted over to the VFW yet. They probably will, when they turn 40, 45, 50 years old someday, and they get rose-tinted glasses about their service, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to go join the VFW, you know what I mean? But the VFW, for all the things that the VFW does very, very well, the VFW, as it was probably before 9/11, our generation of warfighter doesn't necessarily look to the VFW as this entity that, like, oh, hey, I'm going to get out of the Army and immediately join the VFW and continue my service, as a veteran's, service warrior, basically. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of guys don't do that. And the VFW, and even to a certain extent, maybe even the American Legion, depending on what part of the country you came from, they kind of have these old, I guess, cliches about them that a lot of people haven't let go of. It's like a smoke-filled bar with a bunch of old dudes crying in their beer about shit that happened 50 years ago. And it's like, well, it's not really what it is now for the GWAT veteran, because it's not 50 years ago. It was last year. It was the year before. It was
a couple weeks ago.
It might have been, and for some, it might have been 10 or 15 years ago. There's guys that,
and it works though. It works for that generation of veterans,
right.
and it's a good thing. It is most definitely a good thing, because that generation of veterans, they need a home too. They need some place that they could be able to do stuff. And I will add though that a lot of VFWs and Legions are trying to do different things where they work with the GWAT veteran generation. There's a lot of younger leadership that are starting to take positions and roles. And, oh God, are they active? Amazingly active. When stuff is going on, I know VFW higher up guys who jump on board. And they go to battle for the vets. And nobody ever knows about it. But man, they work their channels, they work their network, and they do what they can. Especially like now with the stuff that was going on in Afghanistan. Like one of the most sincere uh, bits of information I received were from VFW commanders who are reaching out. Hey, man, if you guys have some issues, these are different counseling programs that you can work with. You're an Afghan vet, so that's cool. And some of these programs that the VFWs and Legions work are simply amazing. Sanchez, I think you worked with us once with a VFW over in Milltown. And what these guys do is they do book bag drives. And I'm talking about book bags by the hundreds.
Yeah.
Right.
And they fill the book bags with school supplies and give them out to veterans' children throughout the state.
Was that with Backpacks for Life?
Yes, Backpacks for Life worked with us on one of those together. Yeah. And then they do toy drives where they get toys for veterans' children throughout the state. And I'm talking about for like hundreds of kids. So, I mean, some of these VFWs, they're doing this amazing work, but they're not as used to reaching using, social media and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate that you kind of clarified that, Doc, because I didn't mean for that to come off kind of like you and me kind of flipped roles there for a second. Like I didn't mean to come off sounding like the VFW is not a place for the GWAT veteran, because it very much is. Like I said, I'm a life member of the VFW. Cool. So like I didn't want to make it sound like the VFW is not the place for our generation of veterans. It very much is. It's also, it's one of those things where, depending on what part of the country you live in, it might be more hit and miss here than it is over here, depending on where you live.
Not even what part of the country, but chapter for chapter.
I was just gonna say, like, not every VFW post is created equal, and there are some that have been around for a long time that have just kind of, I hate to use the word stagnated, but that's kind of like the word that's coming to my mind. Like some posts have been around for 200 years or 100 years, but they stagnated. And there's other posts that, might be 2 blocks down the road, but they might be involved in everything, and food drives and toy drives and, and they're out there every week. It really just depends on like and there's been a lot of changes in really nationwide over, VFWs. Like my VFW is open to the public. So you have to be a combat veteran to join the VFW as a member, as a member of the organization. But if you just want to go in there and drink, you don't have to you don't have to have served ever. You can go into our canteen, you can drink, because a lot of VFWs, they're not going to keep their doors open if they don't allow, an open bar, basically, like to the local the local populace. My VFW in Colorado is open to the public. Me and my girlfriend, we were at one last night here in Kansas City, and we hung out there last night for a couple hours. That one's open to the public, which is fine. Like times change, and if you don't have enough of a population or a crowd to keep your club, in-house, basically, like obviously you're gonna have to open the doors, but if the money at the canteen brings in the money to keep the doors open and keep the organization running and fluid and able to do a lot of these other outreach things, then so be it. Then let everybody come into the bar and drink. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, and so I
couldn't agree more. Yeah.
And in talking with like these events, I just have to say I've had some of the greatest times with you in the New Jersey Veterans Network. I mean, I got to meet Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. I got to meet Val Kilmer. I got to meet Flash Gordon. And
you got to meet Val Kilmer?
He was a couple feet away, yeah.
You got to meet Flash Gordon?
Yeah, he was so cool.
And it was actually and it was actually really cool because Flash Gordon had, he was a Marine. He put his hands on both our shoulders. He was like, I'm a Marine. And like he went on it, and he was talking to us for a couple minutes, and he was just like, "Oh, I love what you guys do," and I'm just videotaping it. And I'm over here like,
it's Flash Gordon.
Yeah, Flash Gordon. And he was probably the coolest out of everyone.
Dude, what was that movie with Marky Mark and the teddy bear dude? Like the freaking like
Ted.
Ted.
Oh,
that was like the funniest. That was like the funniest part of that movie was like Flash Gordon just being like this raging party animal. You know what I mean? Like freaking like.
Yeah, and we also, God, we did so many events. Haircuts, cars for veterans. I've even been fortunate enough to have received them from the New Jersey Veterans Network as well. It was so unfortunate that you weren't there at that event either, because I when I made my speech, I spoke your name, thanking you, because honestly, Frank, let's be real for a second. A lot of the help that I've gotten since coming back to New Jersey has been because of you. You have been the root of literally all my help, and I guess like the branches spreading into the veteran community. What you do, what you have done, and what you're gonna be doing soon, within the next couple, weeks, months, years. It's been nonstop. I personally, I don't even think you sleep, Frank. That's just I don't even think you sleep, but you do so much. So what are some exciting things you have coming up that you can talk about?
Oh shoot, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. For our team specifically, because like I said, the New Jersey Veterans Network is broad, but we have our own nightlife entertainment team that is stuck together, and we do we're more attuned to doing entertainment kind of stuff. So what I'm really excited about us doing is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing things for kids. So we're going to be teaching. There's a high school, a youth group, and actually 2 high schools, and a youth group for kids who are having a tough time. And we're going to go out there. We're going to teach them to DJ. We're going to teach them about MCing. We're going to teach them about video recording, photography, but all these things having to do with the entertainment industry. And I'm really excited about going into the community, working with these kids. Because when you hear veterans on the news and on TV, there's usually a very negative stigma that goes with it. And one of the things that I'm big on is showing people what veterans can do positively in the community. And by us going out and doing this with these kids, man, I absolutely love that. Operation Cheeseburger Day, that's going to be super cool.
What's that? What's that? Tell me about that. That sounds intriguing to me.
That sounds very intriguing to me.
So I have a good friend of mine that I worked with in the nightclubs, and he actually kind of mentored me and taught me how to do stuff in there. And a few years ago, he had an accident where he lost one of his legs. He was in a coma for several days, but he's such a resilient, strong person, and so carefree and cool guy. When he woke up from the coma, they're telling him all this horrible bad news, and he's like, can a brother get a cheeseburger? His says. So he turned that into something positive moving forward, and he does triathlons. He does event fundraisers, all centered around Cheeseburger Day. So he did Cheeseburger Day earlier this year. We supported that. But in addition, what we're going to do is we're working with a few different nonprofit organizations, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring cheeseburgers directly to veterans at veteran hospitals, veteran shelters, and directly to veteran homes as part of Operation Cheeseburger Day. So I'm really excited about working with Billy Davis. That's who this all came from.
That's really cool.
And, yeah, we're going to bring some hot meals, some resources if need be. We teamed up with a lot of great people for this. Strangers Helping Strangers. Those guys give away hundreds of thousands of pounds of food every year. Some of the local restaurants, and the Vet Center is actually going to work with us on that as well. It's very exciting.
I mean, it's really amazing. It's really amazing to me sometimes just the comfort that can come from a good meal.
Oh my God.
Even if the meal is just a cheeseburger, right? It's comfort food, and it's one of those things where I'm not going to go into detail, obviously, but I had a buddy one time several years ago who was in a pinch, and he had to spend a couple nights in the clank, and I was the only one kind of in the area, so when I got the call that he was going to get released, I went from my house, I went straight to Jack in the Box. I went down to the county courthouse, you know, and I seen him sitting on his phone like outside the courthouse. I just held up a bag of Jack in the Box. I was like, dude, I'm here, bro. I mean, I don't know how many people out there have had the experience, but if you ever have to spend the night in the clank, you know what I mean? Like when you come out, you're cold, you're hungry, you know, you just want something normal, because spending a night or two in jail is not fun. And regardless of why you were in there in the first place, that's irrelevant. You're tired, you're cold, you're hungry, and the first thing you want is just something that will satiate you for a couple minutes and let you take that stress off of being surrounded by like that negativity, basically. And like that's I haven't had very many of those experiences in my life, but I remember when I did have that experience, I remember walking out of a county sheriff's office at like 4 a.m. in the middle of December, and it was terrifyingly cold outside. I was not dressed for it, and I literally I walked outside and I had to walk right back in their main lobby because it was too cold outside, and I had no one. I was in the middle of nowhere. I had no one. There was no one to call. And I had to basically wait till the sun came up and just sit in that lobby until the sun came up before I could do anything, because I was in the middle of nowhere. There was nobody there for me,
just knowing somebody cares can make a big difference,
Oh yeah,
100%. If you show up with that Jack in the Box, and it's not just the food, man. It's like, dude, Johnny cares.
Yeah. Got you, man.
Yeah.
We ain't making no judgments here. It's like I don't care why you were in there. Like, I'm gonna bring you some food, homie. You know what I mean? Like, that's not like what happened is not my business. You and the courts can deal with that later. That's not my business. You're my homie, and you just got out of the clank, dude. Like, I'm bringing you some fucking food, dude. Like,
that was cool.
Bringing you some food, Like, speaking of cheeseburgers, John. Like, so that night I told you we were in Salina. There is a fucking hamburger shop in Salina, Kansas, this little town. It's got a college there, so it's a town of size, but it's not like a big city, obviously. But there's a hamburger shop that is over 100 years old, and me and my girlfriend stopped there, and they basically make sliders. Like, you guys got White Castle, right?
Yeah.
So I would say they're
it's a
probably
staple.
Yeah, like the burgers that they made at this place are probably a little bit bigger than your White Castle sliders, but they're basically sliders. Like, you buy them 6 at a time.
I love it.
And my God, they were delicious. They were all like. And that was actually when me and my girlfriend decided to stay the night. We stopped there specifically to get those burgers.
You guys had the itis.
Well, apparently that burger shop is kind of a staple in Salina, Kansas. So we originally stopped there just to get lunch. And then while we were there waiting for our food to get made, it was like, you want to just get a hotel for the night? Okay, hell yeah! Like, why not? Like,
yeah, hey,
like let's do it. Let's. And then we ended up hanging out in Salina, Kansas all night. Like, that's kind of how it started. Was at a hamburger shop, basically. So, yeah.
That was definitely the itis. Now, Doc, you have a variety of members on your team, and you have a different team for different things. You always make sure that you're ready at the go. You always contact people, weeks ahead of time. So let's talk about your team. I don't even know where to start, because the team, it's so vast. You got Dro, you got Doc Bear, you got DJs, singers, radio personalities.
It depends on what mission we're talking about. You know what I mean? But we have different guys who work on different stuff. Although I must admit, like a lot of us have gotten good at switching things up from one thing to another. But yeah, I'd say the core of the team is Shadow, right? Shadow. So Shadow's the core of the team. But yeah, man, it just really depends on the mission.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, but like the other day, I received a last-minute referral from a veteran, and he had no drinking water because of the storm and the hurricane. His drinking water got contaminated. So, I mean, man, at the last minute, I was able to contact like a large donor we have, get like a large donation of food and water, enough to fill a car. and two of our teams stepped up within like an hour. I think you were on the group text, Sanchez. So I sent it out to everybody, and like within like 10 minutes, Crystal and Pedro hopped on. They're like, "Yo, we got this." And by the end of the night, they showed up to this veteran's house and dropped off a car full of food and water. So that's just kind of how we roll. Or we're doing another thing where we're doing children's drawings for this newsletter that we're doing, and Sanchez, you hopped on board to help out with that with your kids. I'm so looking forward to that. And shoot, it is a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of prep, especially when working with vets. Sometimes we have our difficult days. I know I have mine, but I think I've kind of learned how to work with everybody in different ways. And hey man, I know who I can send stuff to in a text group and hear back from, or who I have to call directly myself, or who I have to send an email to. It takes a lot to be able to manage a team sometimes, but hey man, you guys are all golden, so it's worth it, So.
Absolutely. Hey, and I don't mean to pry too much, Doc, but I am curious. I've always been curious about what the drive, or I should say, where the drive comes to continue serving. Especially after you get out and in your time of service, basically in the military. Did you have any experiences? God bless you.
Bless you.
Did you have any experiences? Bless you.
Sorry.
Did you have any experiences? Downrange that kind of, I guess, maybe, I don't know, stoked the fire, or was it kind of a congruence of everything, and everything that happened after military, or did you experience stuff in Iraq?
Woo! Bless you.
You're okay. You're okay. Allergies are kicking up, man. There's a lot of wind going on, in your guys' area, so allergies happen. But was there something that happened downrange that, I guess, kind of gave you that push, or was it a kind of a confluence of circumstance that you did your service, you're in for about 14 years, now you're out, and you just want to help, or was it stuff that you saw and that you did while you were serving, and the camaraderie and everything else that you just wanted to continue on with? Was it one? Was it the other? Was it both? What really while you were still serving, was there anything that really kind of pushed you, I might want to do this later on, and continue service, basically?
There's a mix of things that goes towards me wanting to do stuff in the community. Okay, pardon me. So, before I even joined the military, my mother passed on when I was very young. I was, just 18 years old. And, she died of cancer. And I noticed that when I visited her at the hospital, she really wasn't being taken care of very well. She was being neglected. The hospital staff there were really insensitive to us as family members. And so when I joined the Army as a medic, I made it a point to make sure that I gave my soldiers the best possible care that they could get, whether I was working in a hospital environment, whether I was working out in the field, it didn't matter. I knew the importance of proper care, especially for heroes. I mean, what a great job. I got to take care of heroes. So throughout my military career, it was just this is important, taking care of heroes. So when I got out, it was well, damn, this is what I do. I help take care of heroes. So I think that transferred over, and it kind of just became a part of me. So, and then, again, when I got out, I went through my difficult times. And
what did you discover? What did you discover when you were having a hard time? And I know when we have these rough times in life, everybody kind of internalizes and goes through it kind of on their own way. But what did you learn when you went through your rough times? What did you learn about yourself, or what did you learn about being resilient enough to come to make it out to the other side of a rough time in life? What did you learn? Sorry if I put you on the spot.
Yeah, you kind of did. I don't know. I guess what I learned from that experience is that things can get better. You know, when you're in that hard time and emotional turmoil, it's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel and know that it's there. And you know, I had some great people who pushed me and helped me get through to there. But I guess that's what I learned, is that even in the darkest times, things can get better if you really want to put that work in. That's what I saw.
Okay, I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Because yeah, the darkness comes.
Yeah, but the darkness, you know, you're gonna have your tough days, but sometimes you gotta hang on to the next good day.
Right, right. Sometimes you have to remind yourself that it's just not going to be dark forever. You know, so, like you get caught up in the middle. You get caught up in the middle, and you get inside your own head, and you start thinking too much and philosophizing too much, and
Yes.
all of a sudden everything just seems hopeless, and you're like, no, it's really not. I'm kind of in a moment right now, and I'm not having a good time, but this time is also going to pass, you know, and it's not going to be like this. It's not going to be like this forever. So, you know, maintain the hope, basically, I guess, if that makes sense.
Very much so.
So yeah.
So I've
What go ahead, John.
my
Go ahead.
bad. So I've heard you say before, Frank, that you do all this work. You know, you've always said it. You don't do it for the rewards. You don't do it for the awards, the attention. But you have a lot of certificates, a lot of awards and stuff. Is there one that sticks out to you the most that you're really proud of?
It's funny, I was just thinking about this the other day. This is gonna sound so silly. When I'm at the hospital and I'm working with my patients, and when I work with people, especially guys who have kids, a lot of guys will write me letters, and they'll write me letters, or they'll draw me pictures. I have a lot of people draw pictures of me and my dog, because everybody knows how much I love my dog. Oh shoot! Actually, you know what? Can I just tilt the camera real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, here's. Can you see these? Are they in focus enough? Maybe not.
Yeah, we could kind of see them.
Well, like here.
It's okay.
I'm okay now. I just punched the shit out of my desk right now, but I'm okay.
Careful on your knuckles, man. You need those things.
Oh, it wasn't the knuckles. It was the wrists.
Oh, okay. Well, be careful on that too.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the technical difficulty, and it happened right at the end of the show too. But to finish off what you were saying,
I did finish. I don't even recall. We actually spoke about something else after.
I was just, yeah, John. I was just asking him about being a line medic and who he was attached to, basically, and like, because you're gonna, you know, with some of the different branches within the Army, you're gonna get, I guess, different experiences being a line medic. You know what I mean? Depending on depending on who you're with, and you know, it's kind of a running joke. It's kind of a running joke in the infantry that, you know, the infantry we love our medics. You know what I mean? And everybody else kind of like kicks them to the side, you know, for the most part, you know what I mean, or at least the appearance is that the medics kind of get shoved to the side in support units versus combat arms units, you know. So like the infantry, we always try to take care of Doc basically as infantrymen, because Doc takes care of us, right? So it's kind of the joke.
and the same thing, like, you know, there's support, medics, cooks, supply. You got to be nice to all of them.
Does their part.
Yeah, you know, you got to be nice to all of them. If you want that extra toilet paper, if you want that, you know, that extra day on that profile, you know.
Right.
But yeah, so you know, we're here at the end of our show. Frank, we got to bring you back on.
Sure.
We got to bring you back on sometime soon. This was so much fun.
It was so easy to talk to, man.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm very happy.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm very happy about that. I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for me and my family, for the veterans in New Jersey, for some of the referrals that I've sent to you, and everyone else. You know, the New Jersey Veterans Network, the Nightlife Entertainment, everything that you're doing is literally another landmark in your timeline, and we're all seeing it. And I just want to say thank you. I just want to say that you are DD214 certified, my friend. You know what you do is unmatched, and you know, keep up the good work, man. You know, I don't know how you do it. You know what? Because I know you're using more than Duracells at this point. So, you know, you're kicking in, and you're killing them with kindness, man. So thank you for everything that you do.
It's an honor doing this stuff, man.
Do you have a final thought before we get into the final thought?
Shoot. Hey man, just keep moving forward, man. That's all I got to say. You know, like you know, sometimes things are difficult. You can push through more stuff than you can realize. Sometimes you don't realize what you can do until you try.
Absolutely,
exactly right.
man.
That is exactly right.
And I believe it's my turn this week.
It is your turn.
Yes, it is.
It is your turn.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, every single week we talk about it, we promote it. You know, we can't fathom enough how important it is to promote the National Suicide Hotline. The number is 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-TALK. We promote this for a very strong reason. 1, 22 a day. 2, we need to be there for each other. And 3, most importantly, we're all we got. We go day in and day out, and we all go through. You know, someone goes through something traumatic every single day. Someone is probably getting COVID right now, and it's killing them emotionally, and they're not going to be able to do anything. Maybe they haven't told anybody. Give them a call. Check on your homie. Check on your friend. Maybe you haven't spoken to that one good friend of yours for 6 hours. Give him a call. Make sure he woke up this morning.
Absolutely.
You know, it's absolutely important, guys. We have to be there for each other. So, 22 a day. 1-800-273-8255, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, and if you get a phone call like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, randomly, like, answer your damn phones. Like, they ain't calling for their health. So, you know, answer your damn phones. Don't just be tired and push the fuck you button, you know, because you're tired and it's the middle of the night. Like, your homie might be reaching out, you know, to get some help. So, answer your goddamn phones, people.
And ladies and gentlemen, see you next Sunday for another edition of the DD214 Gaming Podcast.
Week one of the NFL coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.